Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge, and welcome to my March wrap-up part 1. So I didn't know if I would have a part 1 and 2 this month because I was traveling for 2 big weeks of March, but I should have known that I would have a lot of time to read on planes, and I did. Oh my gosh. This is the first day after 36 hours of traveling, and I didn't sleep in that time, and I think I read like 8 books in that 36 hours because I was on planes most of the time. But I want to talk about the first like 20 or so books I've read of the month, and then, I still got a long time, and like you, I'm in quarantine, so what else am I going to be doing? So, we may scratch towards that goal last month where I read 53 books. We'll see how close we get to that this time. But let's go ahead and get started. The first series I want to talk about that I read is we'll talk about the Callaway Sisters series, which, I've been I think I've almost read all of Krista and Becca Ritchie's books at this point, but we'll see. So I read the Callaway series and its epilogue book. So that is Kiss the Sky, Hot House Flower, Fuel the Fire, Long Way Down, and then Some Kind of Perfect is this epic epilogue book that takes place over 12 years of time. But Kiss the Sky is about Connor and Rose, and Connor is very interesting. So he is, I hate to label him because he doesn't label himself, but he is this crazy, he's like a sociopath, but he's the kind that's trying to be good, and he doesn't think that he can love anyone. He doesn't believe in love, but he really loves Rose. He really loves Rose. It's also a little bit BDSM as well, which I like. He's just that right edge of it. And I love it too because Rose is she's my favorite protagonist or heroine to read about in a BDSM situation because she really loves control, loves it. And she loves to submit to her man. And I love that because that I feel like most represents me. But I love their relationship. I love this series is wrapped up with the Addicted series. I don't like the Addicted series as much, but I like reading about those characters within this series. I know that's weird. It's just that I don't like being in Lily and I don't like being in Lily's head as much. But that's because she's an addictive personality. But anyway, Rose and Connor, and this is when the reality show is first getting recorded, which I knew about from reading the sequel series. But we read about Connor and Rose and how they're navigating everything and their first interactions with each other. Then we have Hot House Flower, which is about, which is about Reich and Daisy. And I've been waiting. So Daisy is finally 18 in this, and Reich and Daisy have kind of a age gap. It's about 7 or 8 years, but it's really significant when we first meet them because she's only 15 and he is 22. And there's always this tension going on, but he's always very he makes a lot of inappropriate jokes, but he's I would never cross that line. But it becomes really clear to him through the other series we've seen. It's obvious to see there's something going on between them, but nothing happens until she's 18. Daisy has a lot of PTSD from some situations that she's been in, and she's been under the spotlight because of the TV show and just all this stuff happening to her. And her and Reich, she ends up in this really dangerous situation, and Reich and Connor and I literally can't. Lauren, they all come, that's his name. They all come to help her, and then her and Reich it all kind of bubbles over, and it's sexy and amazing. And I love an age gap. And then there's Fuel the Fire, which is again about Connor and Rose, and Long Way Down, which is about Daisy and Reich and their infertility issues, which hurt a lot. And then Some Kind of Perfect is about all 3 couples, Lo and Lily, Connor and Rose, and Reich and Daisy, and their children and their lives, and it's beautiful, and it hurt me. So yeah, those books, it's really hard to rate these guys. I know I say that. I put ratings on my Goodreads if you want to see it, and I'll talk about the percentage of what everything's rated when we do my wrap up at the end. But I give them all 5 stars because I love the people so much, but I know the stories being told in that probably isn't a 5-star, but I just can't help myself with some of these romances because I get so much joy and fun out of them that it's hard for me to like rate them higher or lower unless something really sticks out as being bad. So just kind of assume it's all like 5-star unless I say differently. I'm a wreck, I'm sorry. Then I read Somebody to Love by April Wilson. So this book is about, it's actually kind of like a mystery-ish, but it's mostly, this is gay romance. This is about this police detective and that he is in charge of trying to find this serial killer who is killing gay men in this one city. And one of the gay men who gets murdered is the other guy's friend. And when he'd come to the guy's yacht, he found his friend dead. And then him and this police officer, the police officer's name is Dylan. And this, I guess, is the first in a series. This book just came out, so there should be more coming out. I don't know if there'll be more like mysteries or whatever. But Dylan has always thought he was straight, but he hasn't been interested in any women lately. And so it's kind of a like, it wasn't a like gay for you situation. It was a he's figuring it out now situation and being a police officer and if he's okay with that and everything. It wasn't super great. This one I do have a rating for. I gave it a 3.5. It wasn't the best ever. The mystery was like, to me, like really obvious who the person was. And so it was like, if you were going to make it a mystery, I wish the mystery part had been better and not just about the like someone discovering his sexuality part of it. Then I read Worship and Adore by Ella James. Whew, these ones were intense and they were right on the line for me. I was expecting kind of another like Priest out of this, which Priest by Sierra Simone, but I'm telling you guys, that one's one of a kind. I cannot find another story like that one. But this is about a televangelist and kind of sort of his cult. It's kind of a cult. And he is on a vacation. And this one guy gets kind of stranded on his private island somehow. And it's a gay guy. And so they end up kind of having a fling. And it's very interesting. And then, but he doesn't know who this guy is. So the man who was stranded and gets rescued, and they have this like sexy chemistry, he doesn't know who this guy is until he sees him on TV. So then he goes and kind of joins the cult so that he can be around him. And they end up having this interesting relationship. And see, this is one of those where like the tagline for is like, there's not going to be a happy end to this, so don't expect one. And I don't know, but there's 2 books in it. It was kind of weird. Oh, I gave this one 3 stars as well. But I was like fascinated because I wanted to see where it was going to go. And then I was warned though. I was warned that there wouldn't be a happy ending, and I was sad. I wanted there to be. So it wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. Then I read Epic, which was just a short little novella about by Serena Bowen and Al Kennedy, who I read a lot of them this month. And this was just a little novella that they just had come out, and it was about, of course, our favorite couple from Him and Us, and just a little adventure that they have. It was just a sweet little nugget. It was on like 40 pages, and oh, it just made me want more of them. But it was really good. So then I read that, and then I read Stay, which is the second in the Wags series, which is the wives and girlfriends of the hockey players. And this one was about, I just forgot his name, but he's about an older guy on the hockey team, and he is a divorced single dad of 2, and there's this new company that is kind of like a self-shopper for you, as well as like they just take care of everything for you. So they cater to like celebrities and athletes and stuff. And one of the co-owners, she has been kind of the private shopper for this one hockey player. And they end up, he has cameras set up in his house, and so he can see when the people come and drop stuff off, and he realizes that the person who's been helping him is a really beautiful girl, and so her screen name is like HTE something something, so he calls her Hottie in his head, and then he leaves a gift for her to thank her for everything she's done, and they end up meeting, and it's really good. I really liked it too, because she was a more like timid heroine. Just of like, she is also divorced, but she was married to her best friend and like co-owner, and they honestly are still friends afterwards, because they were best friends their whole lives. They got married, but there wasn't a good like chemistry between them. And it's one of those where like they didn't have a super satisfying sex life, and then she's with this guy and it's just so much. So she's intimidated because he likes her so much, and she's just like, I can't, there's so much, I like you, all the things. And it was really cute. And then I finally read The Deal by Elle Kennedy, which I actually own this one. And this was a prompt for one of my Romanceopoly. A lot of these were, but this one specifically. I've had this one for over a year and hadn't read it yet. And this is the first one in the off-campus series, which I need to read the others. I just haven't got to it yet. You'll see soon, I've kind of been on like a run of wanting to read high school or like college romances, which is so funny to me. But this one you've probably heard about if you've been around a while. This one's been out for a long time, actually. This is a new adult one by Elle Kennedy, and this is about a college. This is about a girl named Hannah, and Hannah was assaulted, and so she hasn't been able to. She was assaulted in high school, and she had a long-term boyfriend, and she hasn't been able to have satisfying sex. As in, like, she hasn't been able to orgasm with a man ever. And so there's a guy that she really likes, and this one guy named Garrett needs a tutor for a class. And she's like, I don't have time to tutor anybody. And so Garrett is like, I'm going to find out something that she needs so that she will tutor me. And so he finds out she likes this football player, and he's like, I will help you get that football player if you will help me. And so that ends up leading to him helping her practice sex, which, you know, that always goes just the way you mean it. And it goes from there. And I really loved it. It was so cute. And it led me down a whole trail with Serena Bowen, which will be in my second half of the wrap up because there's stuff there to talk about. But I love that book. Then I read Chasing Cassandra, which I've already talked about a little bit. This is the sixth and final book in the Ravenel series by Lisa Kleypas. Loved this. This was about Tom Severin, who's a railway magnate, and we've met him in other books in this series. He is wealthy and powerful, and he sees Cassandra and he wants Cassandra, but he doesn't know Cassandra. Cassandra is the last of the Ravenels, unattached. She has big fairy tale dreams for a wonderful, wonderful romance, and Tom isn't the one to give her those things. But this is a slow burn, and I'm not always a huge fan of a slow burn. But this one was done right. Like, they keep meeting each other in these different situations, and they keep wanting each other. And then they're like, but I can't have you. So, but you're the only one I want. And it just comes to a boiling point, and it's oh so delicious, and 5 out of 5 stars. And I love it. And I love a hero that has an edge to him. And like all of Lisa Kleypas's they got that edge. They got that fine edge. I like that fine edge. Then I read Ruff Surrender by Carrie Silverwood, and this was a prompt in my, I'm pointing over there because that's where it is, in my Romanceopoly, that was to read a historical romance set in a different part of the world other than England. And so I read this one, and this was set in Egypt, I think, It's at a airplane expo in the early 1900s, and it also is exploring the beginnings of BDSM. And so we meet this girl and we meet this guy, and they have some chemistry, and he's into BDSM and really all parts of BDSM. And it's just beginning, and so he usually has to go to prostitutes to get that, but he meets a woman who is really kind of interested, and so they explore that together, and they decide to have these like 10 days together while they're in the city. And he's like, yeah, and at the end of the 10 days, we'll either go our separate ways or I'll marry you. And he says that so flippantly, and the girl's like, what? And he's like, I mean, if you end up being into this, like, I think I want to marry you. And I just love that. I love that because it was fun to get to see her, get to explore that. And it was also great for him to have that. Like, he was the one who was pursuing her. And I really liked it. I liked it that. It was really fun. I really want to find a copy of this book somewhere. And I really thought it was done really well. I give this one like 4.5 stars. And I dinged a little bit because there was also a mystery going on where women were being killed in a very demented way. And it was, you knew who was doing it the whole time. And there was no twist to it. Like, you knew who was doing it the whole time, and I was like, oh, it's going to be somebody else. And it was that person. And I'm like, okay. So that just knocked it down a star because I was like, again, I'm a person that I'm like, either have that or don't. Do it or don't. Like, if it's a love story, then don't add that extra stuff in. If you're making a romantic suspense, then do it right. That's kind of my feeling on that stuff. Then I read Lev by Bella Aurora. This was another Romance-opoly pick. And I have a couple things to say about this. So this is a 5 out of 5 star read. This is about Lev, who his family owns a strip club. And he finds this girl, this beautiful girl who's on the streets, and she steals his brother's wallet. And he notices it. And he stops her and he says, I'll either call the cops or I'll give you a job. But if you get a job here, these are the rules. And he ends up bringing her home with him. And because he's worried she'll steal from him, she sleeps on his bed and he sleeps on the couch. And he buys her clothes and he takes care of her. And so this girl, she'd run away from her foster family when she was just turning 18 because she was in love with her foster brother. And the foster mother walked in on them and she called her some names. So she's been living on the street for 5 years. And she's like malnourished and sick and all these things. And now Lev definitely is on the spectrum somehow. He reminds me a little bit of Kai from the Bride Test, where he does kind of like the finances for the club. It reminds me a lot of The Accountant with Brad, what's his face? With Ben Affleck, not Brad, with Ben Affleck, where he is very high functioning, but his brain doesn't think exactly the same way. And so he's not super great with emotions, but he's also an enforcer for the club. So he does crack some skulls as well. This very kind of mob thing. There was some great story laid in this. I'm very interested in the rest of the series. And then we come to the reason why I had a problem with this, which I didn't. This book, 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. It's going on in my like mafia boss, even though he's not a boss, but like mafia romances or whatever. Loved it. This book came out 5 years ago. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's 2 more in the series. And we know one is about some other people we meet. And I'm super excited to read it. The author has not continued the series. She hasn't written anything else, even though the books have titles. There's no release dates. There's no more information. There's nothing. And that can happen sometimes. That can happen in like the indie publishing, in the, Kindle Unlimited space. Like sometimes they just don't have any more story to give or stuff to do. So that's really hard. But obviously this is part of like a standalone romance series. So you can just read Lev. I'm just telling you, prepare to love this story and be so ready for the next one and then not have it. Lev is also a single father, and it's fabulous. Like, I really love this book, and I'm heartbroken. There's more. So, let's see, a few left. So then I read I think it's the St. Luke docu-series, and I read the 3 books, Dr. OB, Dr. ER, and Dr. Neuro, and this is by Max Monroe. This is about a hospital, and there is a reality show coming out about it where there is a doctor obstetrician, an ER doctor, and a neurosurgeon who have a camera crew follow them, and a series about them. So the first one about Dr. OB, this poor doctor gets made a fool of in the docuseries. They make him look like this flirty flirt. He was nervous about the camera. He made some inappropriate jokes, and it just makes him look like a sleaze. So then the other problem is that they need a new nurse, and they are afraid of nurses getting hired who are obsessed with the doctor. So they interview this one girl who, she's kind of a hot mess, but she's awesome, who hasn't heard about the show yet. So they hire her on the spot because she doesn't know about it. And they immediately have chemistry, and it's really good. And then the rest of the series, they're about the 2 other doctors, and I loved it. I love these quick standalone romance trilogies. So those ones were all amazing. Then, to make it heavy for a second, I read Us Against You. This was supposed to be our book club pick, but nobody wanted to read it with me, which I understand. They wanted me to suffer, but not to suffer with me. It's okay. This is the sequel to Beartown. There's supposedly going to be a 3rd one. He hasn't started it yet, but there will be a 3rd. very interested to see where that one goes after reading this. This broke me the same way the first one did. I didn't know that it would because it started kind of slow. We're dealing with the aftermath. This is like the next hockey season after everything that happened in Beartown. If you don't know, Beartown, a girl gets raped and it's her word against the hockey players, and he's their star athlete. Well, some stuff went down, as you would expect, and we're dealing with the fallout, and we're dealing with people turning on each other, and we're dealing with some ugly things, and then we're dealing with new relationships, and they're beautiful, and we're dealing with other things. I don't want to spoil it because I had no idea about those things, even though in the intro, it's going to tell you. It says something like this: people we love will die. We will bury our children beneath our most beautiful trees. So that was in the intro. So you know it's going to hurt you. And when nobody's died yet, you're going to be wondering who it's going to be. And then it's not who you think it is. And it hurts. And it hurts a lot. And it was very painful to read this, which I understand. Oh, guys. Ooh, his writing is so good. If you've never read a Bachman, I've only read Beartown and this, and then his novella, and The Way Home gets longer and longer. And every day, The Way Home gets longer and longer. But his books are so good. And so I really hope the third one is about some of the younger people we met in this one. But also, don't rush yourself, Bachman. I don't need the pain right now. I'm good. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Just a couple left. So, all right, well, we'll talk about this one real fast. So I finished A Breath of Snow and Ashes by Diane Gabaldon, which I actually started back in, see, this is messing with my camera, but there you go, you see it, which I actually started last month, and it took a while because, I mean, it's a big book, and I got distracted in the middle there a little bit. But it just continues the story of the Frasers. It's freaking awesome. It's 5 out of 5 stars. If you haven't read the first 6 books, it starts with Outlander, in case you didn't know, and you should read this series. It's great. And then the last 2 books I read, well, that I'm talking about here, because I've read a lot more books, but I read Fortuna Sworn and Restless Slumber by K.J. Sutton. So KJ, she reached out to me, I think it was over a month ago now, and asked me if I would check out her book because she, you know, had seen that I'm okay reading a little bit of smut. And so I was prepared for it to be a little crazier than it was even, but I think maybe it's just hard for, you know, it's hard for self-published authors to find people who are willing to read like any smut in their books, I guess. But sign me up, KJ. I am here for it because I loved these books. I gave the first one 4.5 and I gave the second one 5 stars. I read these on my trip and I didn't talk to anyone for like a whole day because I was always pulling out my phone and reading it. Excuse me. So, this is kind of like an urban fantasy / fantasy happening in our real world, weird like crossover. It's amazing. So our main character, her name is Fortuna Sworn, and she is what's called a nightmare. We live in this world where all the creatures you've heard of exist, and they are actually descended from the angels. And I love that. I loved how she used biblical mythology in here, just enough of it to make it amazing, but not enough that I felt like it was like sacrilege or whatever, you know? So she used the idea of the Nephilim. She used the idea that they were all descendants from angels. So werewolves, vampires, fairies, fae, all of them are. And so, but the thing is there's people hunting them because each of these creatures, something about them is really special. So with a nightmare, if you eat their heart, you will be fearless. With a, I literally can't remember what each thing is, so I'm not going to list them. I just know that's with hers because we start with Fortuna and she's trapped in a cage. And so they're going to sell her heart on the black market because they found out she's a nightmare somehow. And we also know that her brother has been missing for 2 years and she's been living on her own because their parents are dead. And this man named Khalith, he is, we don't know what he is yet. I want to be careful. This is a new series. So the first one came out in September or August of last year. And then the newest one just came out March 2nd or whatever. and she gets rescued by Collith, and he says that he's part of the Fae, of the Unseelie Court. It's one of those where there's a Seelie and an Unseelie Court. So she gets rescued by him, and he says, I know where your brother is, and I'll take you to him, but you can't go to the Unseelie Court if you're not married to me. So she debates this, argues back and forth, blah, 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 says, I won't be forced into anything. And he's like, you just have to marry me. I won't be forcing you into anything else. I would never force you to consummate our marriage, all these fun things. And so she agrees to do it. And so they go, and we find her brother. And we find her brother is not eager to leave. In fact, he's not eager to leave at all. In fact, he hates that she showed up. And then we find out that Collith is actually the king of the Unseelie Court, and that she has just married the king of the fairies. And holy crap, what's going on? Now, the thing is, when the king marries someone, they don't automatically become the queen. There is a throne sitting next to his that she cannot sit in, even though she doesn't really want to. She has to, if anyone who wants to become the queen, has to complete 3 trials. And if they complete those 3 trials, they'll become the queen. And not only will they become the queen, but every fairy bloodline, which, or Unseelie bloodline, which there are these like original bloodlines from like way back in the day, has to swear their oath to her and give her a gift of her choice. So the only way to free her brother, who I don't want to tell you what's going on with that, but he's not free to leave. The only way to free her brother would be for her to become the queen and then ask for her brother's freedom as a gift. And that's a little more detail than I would like maybe share, but I really want you to read this book. Now, while she did warn me about smut, my level of smut, as you know, my tolerance for it is very high. I consider this a new adult, like urban fantasy. And I would consider the smut level low. There's graphic language, but there wasn't anything that I would have been like, oh my God, close my eyes. Like I would really consider it along like Sarah J. Maas level in the best comparisons, because I love her. And I really suggest you read this. So the first book, Fortuna Sworn, is on Kindle Unlimited. The second one is for purchase, but it's like $3.99. And I really suggest this one. I loved it so much. It is fantasy. There is romance. There's slow burn stuff going on. The second one, holy crap, the cliffhanger on the second book. And the third one's not coming out until next winter. KJ, what are you doing to me? I loved it so much. So much. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. So there you go, guys. That is what I read the first half of March. I already have 9 other books to talk about that I read on my flights home. But I just wanted to get something up for you guys for what I've been reading. And I make new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Make sure to subscribe for more content. And I look forward to more videos. Bye.